Climate change, a world issue, it's affecting everyone. But an insight into the problem in PNG, and you find it's not just the environment that's being affected. Human mobility is now a growing problem. According to latest figures, more than 150,000 people were newly displaced. Now the International Organization for Migration has come on board to help. Kevin Dayonga reports.
Climate migration is already becoming a problem in Papua New Guinea. The first of what is expected to come in the near future is being felt by the Carteret Islanders of the autonomous region of Bougainville. Being the largest and most populated in the Pacific region, PNG's volatile environment makes its communities vulnerable to many hazards. The slow onset process from drought, coastal erosion, and sea level rise with rapid onset events such as floods, earthquakes among others have displaced many in recent times. The main challenge concerning migration in PNG is lack of comprehensive and concrete data on the internal and cross-border migration patterns. Migration issues have been taken up more prominently in policies in recent years. In 2011, a section on migration was included in the Household and Census Survey. International Organization for Migration's Chief of Mission George Gigori said, "Understanding climate change as a new driver of migration is critical when addressing the challenges faced by many communities in PNG."
It's important to remember that climate is not just weather. Climate is not just temperature. Climate is the environment around us, and it is the way people feel it is how it affects their livelihoods. Whether it is the sea level rise that's encroaching on their gardens and destroying the food that they need to survive, whether it is the changes in temperature that affect their agriculture and the yield of their crops, which means they can no longer feed themselves, or whether it is sudden onset disasters that...
A twofold report revealed by IOM states that complex relationship between migration, environment and climate change has affected human mobility. It also reveals that the patterns of migration and displacements in PNG have been primarily internal.
Climate change, as my minister always say, it's here. The science have proven it to be true. We just need to understand it well and be able to live with it. It can't go away. It's not something that will go away. It will be with us. We just need to plan wise in our development aspiration and be able to live with it. And you should be able to live a happy life, but be mindful of the consequence.
According to the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, a total of 151,000 people were newly displaced from 2008 to 2013, and around 50,000 are partly linked to environmental destruction and climate change effects.
We look at different scenarios when it comes to assisting the government and communities in adapting to changes in climate and the environment around them. So we do a number of things. One option for the community is to increase their resilience and build up their capacity to cope with the changes. So looking at disaster resilient agriculture, looking at building seawalls or adjusting their terrain to protect them from certain elements of nature, as well as improving the infrastructure around them and doing certain projects that make them more resilient.
A collaborative effort is needed to address relocation and resettlement issues among those affected. Acting Director of Climate Change Development Authority, Joe Pokana, says the office is doing just that to address the uncoordinated system for the displaced people.
Okay, the government has started some years back, but since we came into being, we are trying to coordinate well so that all relevant stakeholders are involved. We have a 30 million project, USD project. Now it's called a Building Resilience to Climate Change, and that's with that there's 5 provinces that we have to they will benefit out from that funding over a course of 6 years. So we are trying to test the resilience of those communities.
In response to the critical displacement scenario in Medang and Bougainville, separate institutions such as Manam Restoration Authority and Atolls resettlement programs were established by the concerned provincial governments. These institutions were given the authority to manage appropriate land and resettle the displaced people from not returning to their original homes. It has been a complex situation in which it brought about social issues, funding from relevant stakeholders among many others.
We're working with the government to ensure that when the resettlement does happen, we're not sure when, but when it does happen, that the people are involved in the resettlement process themselves. 9 out of 10 resettlement programs that fail because the people that are moving are not involved in the movement process. They were not there before to see where they're about to go. They were not part of building the new community where they're moving into.
If you migrate people, there's social problem that will come up, as we have seen with some of the migration of people like down Manam and even the Cataract Island that moved to the mainland. You know, they are islanders, and their normal way of doing things is different to somebody in the mainland. And if they have to adopt, it takes a long time.
And it's a slow process, it's a difficult process, especially in the Melanesian context. When you have such a strong attachment to land, and most of the land is customary, the first thing you have to do is find new available land for the people to move to. This is not easy. And this is not a process that IUM can drive. We can assist, but ultimately it's the government and the communities who have to decide. When you're moving people, you're not moving them into empty space. You're moving into land with other communities around them, and these people were never there before. So you have to make sure that the host communities are ready to accept these people, and there is no shock to the local economy that's been there before.
In the meantime, the government has already taken various adaptation and development measures. This is to improve the capacity of the people affected so they can adapt with the deteriorating effects of environmental change.
What we find out is if you can build the capacity of a person, like say to have education, they can easily decide for themselves to move away from or manage the impact of climate change. But many of us have benefited out from being educated. So when you have education, you move without any problem. You can live anywhere in the country or in the world. So that's where we are trying to get it. If you can educate somebody to be well informed, they can decide for themselves to live out of the impact of climate change. And if we can reach that, it means we have to change a lot of behavior of people to understand how we are going to do that.
But the question that lingers in the hearts of many that are affected by this phenomenon is, when will the government speed up processes to address their plight?
PNG Tonight. After the break, Mini World Youth Day.